Cuba's National Assembly chose Miguel Diaz-Canel as the country's new president on Thursday. Diaz-Canel thus takes over the presidency from Raul Castro, who has been leading Cuba for the past 12 years, ever since his legendary brother, Fidel, stepped down in 2006. Political power in Cuba is now passing to a new generation of Cubans who were born after the 1959 revolution. Miguel Diaz-Canel is relatively unknown, but has been vice president of Cuba for the past 5 years. Back in the 1990s, when he was the first secretary of the Communist Party in Villa Clara province, he was known as being approachable and promoted LGBT rights before it became official policy.
Fue muy visionario, porque bueno, apoyar al menjunje ahora es casi ya como una obligación, ¿no? Pero apoyarlo en aquella época cuando venía con muchas ideas renovadoras, nuevas, como le dio espacio a la comunidad LGBTI, que estaba bastante marginada. Creo que este fue el primer lugar que comenzó un trabajo no estableciendo un gueto, sino integrándolo a la vida social y a la vida cultural.
Well, the new president of the Council of State and Ministers of Cuba, it's a person that have a very long trajectory in the Cuban Revolution. He was a leader of the Young Communist League. He was a leader in the student organizations. After that, he was a teacher, a professor in the University of Las Villas, and also was a leader in the party in different provinces of Cuba, in Villa Clara and in Holguín. In both provinces, he developed a very outstanding work. And after that, he was a minister of higher education in Cuba. And in recent years, he was nominated as the first vice president of the government of Cuba.
But Cuba is going through a difficult time at the moment. A country that ever since the revolution has been the hemisphere's most equal country is now going through a period of rising inequality, mainly because of Raul Castro's economic liberalization reforms.
The biggest challenge that Diaz-Canel is going to be dealing with is the Cuban economy. The Cuban economy is in the doldrums. It has suffered many shocks from very huge major shocks to minor shocks over the last 25 years.
Also, President Trump's policy of reversing President Obama's economic opening towards Cuba has significantly reduced U.S. tourism to the island, which is a very important source of income for Cuba.
I think the biggest challenge of all the Cubans is to face a very cruel and crazy policy of the United States. I think we need to develop our country, develop our economy, but in the framework of a criminal blockade that have been imposed against Cuba since almost 60 years, it's very difficult to advance. And I think to conduct the Cuban Revolution and the Cuban economy in that environment, it would be one of the challenges, the biggest challenges that Miguel Diaz-Canel will have. But I'm sure if in 60 years the different government of the United States have not been able to defeat the Cuban Revolution, I am sure that with the new president, the situation will continue, because we are not going to surrender our flags.
It is unclear which way Diaz-Canel will take Cuba in the post-Castro era, but until now he has shown himself to be a loyal follower of Raul Castro. However, followers of Fidel Castro's more egalitarian approach remain in office and could still play a role, according to Professor Elizabeth Dorr.
I think the big issue in Cuba right now is the struggle within the Communist Party. That is a struggle that, to sort of put it in simple terms or slogans, between Fidelistas, who want to hold on to as much egalitarianism as possible, and Raulistas, who actually Raul Castro has denounced egalitarianism as a romantic idea but unworkable for the future of Cuba. And Raul Castro has introduced some significant economic changes in the direction of the market, in the direction of allowing small and medium-sized entrepreneurs to function.
No matter which faction wins out, it is clear that the Cuban government remains committed to maintaining some form of independent socialism in Cuba.
No, I believe that Miguel Diaz-Canel, the new president of the Council of State, will continue along the lines of Fidel, along the lines of Raul, because I think that we are just arriving at the very beginning of a process in which the oldest generations that made the revolution pass the flag to the new generations. But it doesn't mean that we are going to abandon the line of independence, of sovereignty.
As long as Cuba remains on this course, though, it will continue to confront both the dominance of the United States in the Western Hemisphere and the almost impossible challenge of maintaining a different economic system in a global neoliberal capitalist context. Greg Wilpert for the Real News Network.